Hey everyone, this is Randy with Snap Judgments. Look, I ended off the episode on Friday saying I would come back at some point over the weekend if I could and talk some early combine storylines, some Patriots adjacent news, or even Patriots direct news, perhaps. Um, so let's go down a couple of the quick storylines. Let's see, I'm gonna. Oh, yeah. By the way, please put your comments in here. Tell me what you think about the new logo. I've been kind of brainstorming and workshopping some things here, and this is the final product. I think I really like it. So throw your comments in there. Let me know what you think about that. And we're going to let's see. I'm gonna there we go. There I am. Um, So yeah, I put myself back on the screen here, and yeah, let's talk about some Patriot stuff. Listen, first of all, we talked about the Max Crosby thing. The price that the Raiders are looking at. Um, I don't think they're honestly looking to trade him. I think that it's just a price that's set with the deliberate intention of driving away would-be buyers. So anyway, there's that. The AJ Brown thing. Now, there was a lot of speculation throughout the week about trade costs, right? People had talked about maybe giving a first and a third or a first and a fourth and getting a second back. Turns out, it seems, according to reporting from various local sources here in New England yesterday, primarily, that it looks like Philly might be looking for a first and a second right now from AJ Brown. Now, listen, they're going to create like 40 million in dead cap space if they trade him prior to June 1st. So honestly, that makes sense to me. And again, like draft picks in this draft cycle are not nearly as valuable as the draft picks in next draft cycle based upon the draft class in last next year's draft, as well as the perception of the draft class in this year's draft, which a lot of scouts reportedly they just don't like. Okay, it's not like they don't love it. They just don't like the draft class as a whole. Next year, it's projected to have a lot of top tier talent, okay? Not just at the top, but sprinkled throughout the draft. But there are projected to be, I mean, like 8 or 10 guys that you're going to be really, really excited about at premium positions next year, too. Quarterback, left tackle, wide receiver, pass rushers. There's all kinds of talent in next year's draft cycle. So people are looking ahead to that and trying to load up. So I think that the price for AJ Brown right now is going to be higher than it will be in August. I think once you hit August, if he's still looking to be traded, they could look to move on from him then. The price would be lower, maybe a second or a third round pick in next year's draft, which again, so more valuable picks. And also, at that point in time, the dead cap hit for AJ Brown will be something around 10 or 12 million, I believe. So they'll save themselves about 30 million in dead cap. Um, so really it's a good thing on both sides from a Philly perspective. It just doesn't really make sense to deal him prior to the draft. For the Patriots, on the other hand, it makes more sense to do it in the next 10 days. And I feel like if they don't do it in the next 10, 11, 12 days before the March 13th deadline, where they've got to pay Steph Diggs some money, if they don't make a deal happen in there, then it's not going to happen. I don't think that they'll be in a position in August to absorb a contract of AJ Brown's size. I think they would have to trade some sort of asset at that point in time. It would be difficult. I don't think it would be a doable thing. So if AJ Brown's going to happen, it's going to happen in the next week and a half. That's my read on it. If it's going to happen to New England, if he sits until August, and he's still in Philly in August, and they look to move on from him then, I don't think that his next home will be in New England. So the let's see, nothing else really coming out trade market wise. There hasn't been any movement that I'm aware of as far as the Brian Thomas Jr. trade market, and I haven't heard really any talk of Christian Barmore moving on or anybody else for that matter. So there's really the Christian Barmore stuff is just speculation. And that's what it's been since the start. Like I've been open and honest about that. It's based upon a number of valid concerns, um, ranging from just who the guy is as a guy to legal issues. And then you have to talk about his performance falling off when Milton Williams was injured and Christian Barmore was the guy. He couldn't seem to handle it. So that all those three things combined, I think that you're best served to find a trade partner somewhere and try and get what you can, even if it's a third or a fourth round pick. I understand that there's talent there. I understand on the field, on a Madden game or whatever, you would be losing, like overall points for your team or whatever. But life is not a Madden game. They are trying to build a specific culture. And I just am of the opinion that he doesn't fit the character that I've heard Mike Vrabel and others consistently describe. So that's my take. I'm not moving off it. Even if he stays here, I just don't think he's like long for here unless he does some serious growing up. So that's that. That's what I have to say on that topic. It hasn't changed. Now let's talk about the combine, because there have been a number of standout performances throughout the days that they've been here. Now, we came in, we talked about on Friday the edge measurements. They were a little unsettling to some folks because they just weren't ready for the short arm lengths scattered throughout this edge class. A number of top tier prospects measuring in at under 32 inch, even under 31 inch. And then other prospects still also measuring, closer to 32 inch. I highlighted a number of prospects that I thought had what I said were double green flags rather. And let's see, I will pull up my list right now. I put this all on a spreadsheet, so it's easier, but it apparently. All right, let's see. So yeah, really headlining my interest in terms of guys that I have to go like reevaluate now is Anthony Lucas. He came in at 6'5.5", 256 with 33.5-inch arms and 10.25-inch hands. All right. Now, like I always say, I really like a big old hand on a guy. Okay. Like that's can make up for a lot of things. And when you get a mitt on somebody in the trenches, if you've got a strong hand, and we don't have we've talked about it, we don't really have any sort of measurement of grip strength here at the combine. Like if I were a GM for my 18 minutes with these prospects, part of it would be, here, take this grip strength test, because that to me is super important. But you got those big old mitts, 10.25-inch hands, and coming in at 256, I mean, that is 25 pounds lower than he was listed, I believe, in college. At least 20 pounds. He was at least 275, but I want to say he was 280, 285 listed in college. This guy came in svelte, okay? He is absolutely a scheme fit here, and I've really got to go back and review his tape. I'd watched a lot of USC film because I was looking at Kamari Ramsey, and the wide receivers on the other side of the ball. But we'll get into those guys in a moment. But I hadn't really paid a lot of attention to Anthony Lucas just because I didn't think he was going to be a scheme fit here. So I figured, why bother? That was obviously a foolish decision on my part. DDS denied Dennis Sutton out of Penn State. We talked about him on Friday too. Very excited about him. He put up good numbers, showed good explosiveness, has great length, 33.5-inch arms. He's 6'6", 256, 10.1/8-inch hands. Ideal. Okay. Gabe Yakis out of Illinois. We're going to have to check on his pro day. I talked about that. 6'4", 260, 33-inch arms, 10-inch hands. Joshua Josephs also. Ideal frame, did not test, have to check in on his pro day. Zion Young is a guy that I have heard the Patriots have met with at the combine, that they've got some interest in. He has some big fans in the building, reportedly. Now, he also has some character red flags. All right. There was something about a thing at Michigan that I've got to look more into, that I believe it was Dane Brugler mentioned it. Um, Something in the tunnel or something. It was a group thing. He was a part of it. I've got to look more into that. I'm not sure what that's about, to be honest. I do know he has a DUI, and is that going to be an issue? I mean, I would say for the Patriots, it's certainly not disqualifying, given the fact that your wide receiver coach is what's his name again? Todd Haley, wide receiver coach Todd Downing. Um, like he had some stuff in his background too when he was working under Vrabel in Tennessee, and then Vrabel went ahead and brought him in here. So obviously not disqualifying, maybe even something that the Patriots are specifically or are well equipped to handle. If someone like Todd Downing has dealt with those issues in the past, maybe he's well equipped to kind of help Zion Young deal with those issues. I don't know. Anyway, Malachi Lawrence, he's another guy we want to keep an eye on out of UCF. He had really solid workout, 4.52 40 with a 1.59 10-yard, 40-inch vertical, which is, I believe, second best out of the group that I have here at Edges that tested. George Gums Jr. at 41. And then he went and jumped a 10-10 broad also, which is very impressive. 6'4", 253, 33 and 5/8 inch arms, 9 1/4 inch hands. He's an ideal edge prospect. I really like him. Probably a second round guy. One of the things that interests me about when you look at like who these guys are visiting with team wise is you look at the teams, like who they are visiting with, like the trends rather. Okay. You don't necessarily, I don't just look at the names. Sometimes the names are important. Okay. Sometimes they're key. Um, but sometimes it's just like you want to look at the overall trends. Okay. So once I like kind of bomb down this list of who they're looking at, it's been minimal at running back and wide receiver. There have been few reported meetings, none at the combine so far. I would expect that to change in the coming days. I think we're just not getting full information quite yet. There's been a few tight ends they met with, including Nate Berkshire of Texas A&M. Now, they met with him at the combine. And just to give you a couple quick bullet points on him, he is 6'5 and a half, 245, 32 and 5/8 inch arms, 10 and 1/2 inch hands. And I actually did not have record of him participating. Let me just go ahead and double check that. Nate Berkshire. Come on. This NFL Combine page can be a little slow sometimes. I don't have him on my spreadsheet currently. So I'll have to double check that. There we go. Yeah, the Combine page can be a little slow sometimes, and sometimes it slows down the other pages on your browser, especially when I'm running this live stream. Yeah, I have him with a 4.4 20-yard shuttle, and that's it. So I'd have to look into why he didn't work out. But he's certainly got a good frame. Again, I like the big hands, especially on a tight end. Tight end's going to have to do a lot of blocking. Obviously, there's catching involved in the job. Big old mitts, that's a good thing. Those big hands doing the catching is what kind of got Michael Trigg on the radar earlier in the season. People just seeing his hands catch the football and the football like disappear into his hands. Nate Berkshire has the same exact size hands. Another guy I really like there is Sam Roush. I've talked about him in the past. He showed up 6'6", 267. Again, 10-inch hands. Now, a little bit of a red flag with the 30 and 5/8 inch arms. For a guy his height, that's a very, very small percentile. I'm not sure what it is, but it's probably in the single digits percentile arm length. But he did go out there with a 4.7 40, which is respectable for a guy his size. 161 get off, that 10-yard split, that's key. Okay, that's just as good as guys who ran the 40, full tenth of a second faster. All right, that's just as good as let's pull up some guys here. Dallin Bentley ran a 4.62 with a 1.62 split, 4.62 with a 1.6 for Eli Raridan. Here we go. Jaron Kanik ran a 4.52 with a 1.61 split. Okay, so that split, that get off for Roush, that's pretty solid. All right. Um, he also 38 and a half inches in the vertical, which is third, I believe, in the group. I'm not looking at the group. I'm looking at my spreadsheet. But look, if Eli Stowers didn't come in with a ridiculous vertical of 45 and a half inches, he has jumped himself into the first round in some mock drafts. Literally, I'm seeing mock drafts now with Eli Stowers in the first round. And I didn't see that before he went ahead and jumped out of the gym in Indianapolis. All right. He also put up a 4.51 of the 40 with a 1.59 split. And I believe the 11-foot, 3-inch broad jump he did was also a combine record. So it was certainly the best in this group by nearly a foot. Oh, no, sorry. Kenyon Sadiq, 11.1. But after those guys, the next guys were like 10.8. There was one guy at 10.8. There's another guy at 10.6. But these guys really were just superior athletes to the rest of this group. Kenyon Sadiq went out there, put up a 4.39 40, fastest 40 for a tight end ever. First tight end to ever go under 4.4 with a 1.54 split. Again, he 43 and a half inch vertical on 11-foot, 1-inch broad jump. That guy is no longer in our draft range because he is going to go top 20 for sure, perhaps top 15. You could really make an argument for him at a lot of spots in the top 15. So that really kind of brings out the tight end group. All right, there's again, the Nate Berkshire guy is he's someone to keep an eye on. He's someone I'm going to watch a little bit more film on. I'm going to pay attention to his pro day. The Patriots wanted to meet with him at the combine, so I'm interested in him. Dan Villari, we talked about him this past week from Syracuse. They met with Dan Villari at the Hula Bowl and the Senior Bowl. I haven't heard of a combine meeting yet. That's probably because I don't think he's there. I don't think he got an invite. Maybe that's why they met with him twice prior to here. But if he gets a team visit or they go to his pro day, keep an eye on him too. They definitely already shown interest in him. Looking at the list again, we're talking about trends here, right? One offensive tackle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 interior offensive line. They did say tackle was a need, but they aren't approaching this process like it's a top priority yet. What they are doing is they're going in and looking at guys. To me, some of these guys are multiple position guys. Okay, I believe Jalen Farmer from Kentucky is their center. Cage Casey at Boise State played left tackle his entire time there, but he's going to play guard in the league. I mean, if he could play left guard, he is a big friggin' guy. Let's see, let me pull up his exact measurements. 6'6", 310, 32 and 3/4 inch arms, 10 and a quarter inch hands. Again, look at it's kind of a little theme there. But the big hands, all right, that's definitely a signifier of something that you want physically. Jalen Farmer, like I said, I think he's the center of Kentucky. They met with him at the combine. They met with Cage Casey at the Senior Bowl. And then Brian Parker, the second out of Duke at the East West Shrine Bowl, they met with him. He is a multi-position guy. He played tackle in college. He's billing himself as a center as part of the draft process. But my point is that they're clearly looking really hard at the draft to solve their interior offensive line needs. And I'm even hearing reporting that they're not really looking in free agency there. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'd be surprised if that was true. There's a lot of BS stories that are thrown out at this time of year, okay? And it's definitely something to everything you read right now, everything you hear right now from an NFL source, take with a grain of salt. They not it's not necessarily their goal, their top goal to inform you accurately or inform the reporter accurately. Their top goal is to acquire what they need in this offseason. And if that means lying to a reporter, that's fine. Okay. They have no problems doing that, believe me. Misdirecting, aiming in the wrong direction, whatever. But again, this is why I follow some of the things I do, because it's like, yeah, you can meet with one prospect just to kind of do some background scouting on someone you think another team is going to meet, but you're not going to meet with 9 interior offensive linemen and only 1 tackle without having legitimate interest in the interior offensive line class over the tackle class, right? Um, the tackles are working out currently right now as I'm speaking, by the way. So let me just mention that and take a look. Let's see about the lab results. I know they were running the 40, which who really cares about the offensive line 40, but hey, it's still fun to watch a fat guy run. Oh, there are some good numbers here too, actually. Yeah, they've looks like they've all run it. The fastest Spencer Fano, 491. Max Ihenakor, terrible at his name, 491. So those guys tied for first. Jalen Farmar, that's the guy that I talked to. He's listed here as a guard. He ran a 493. Monroe Freeling, I mocked him this week, 6th to the Browns, 493 also. Parker Brailsford, real undersized guy out of Alabama, center, 495. Jaeger Burton out of Kentucky, also a center, 494. There's some really, I mean, look, if you're running under a 5 at 300 plus pounds, I'm probably impressed. Now, Parker Brailsford, not 300 plus pounds, but still a 495 is pretty solid. That's pretty good movement. Now he's 289. I think he might be a little small for the league. I think he's got to put on weight. I don't know if you can. I don't know. I haven't seen and noted a center with under like 290 something weight. So I'd have to like really look and see who the smallest guy is in the draft, or the smallest guy is at center in the NFL. But I know you can make a roster and play on a scout team. Willie Lampkin last year was like 5'10", 260 or something like that. He's tiny, wrecking dudes at the Senior Bowl. All right, let's see. Max Ihenakor is 491 with a 174 split, 30-inch vertical, 30.5-inch vertical, 9.7 broad. And I've been keeping on top of his age too, by the way, and I'm pretty certain he's 22. Yeah, it just continues to say 22. So it looks like the NCSA database that he was listed in, it had a 2022 recruiting profile and it had the age, but I think the age is something that they put in the birth date and it just changes as the years go on. So that was a false alarm on that. Jalen Farmar, by the way, this is a kid. I wanted to look at his thing just to see if he played. No, he was a 2-year starting right guard, not center. I was incorrect there. 2-year starting right guard in Kentucky. The scouting report at NFL.com just says his run blocking is better than his pass protection. Compact point of power, good core strength, plus drive blocker. So good run blocker, good speed, 176, 10-yard split. That's solid for a guy that size. Not a great vertical, not a great broad. 6'5", 312 pounds, 34 1/4 inch arms, 9 1/4 inch hands. So hands on the smaller side, arms on the longer side. Anyway, let's go. Next, what I was looking at, the other side of the ball is number one, there's a bunch of interior defensive linemen that they've talked to. Okay. 7 guys that we know of so far. That's Nick Barrett from South Carolina, Rayshon Benny from Michigan, Cody Huisman from Virginia Tech, who I don't have any information on. Noah Miles from Howard, I also do not have any information on. Um, and sorry, I dropped that tab. Tyler Onyedem from Texas A&M. They talked to him at the combine. Sorry, Nick Barrett was at the combine also. Caleb Proctor from Southeastern Louisiana, also at the combine. And Landon Robinson from Navy. They talked to him at the Shrine Bowl because he was infamously excluded from the combine. Navy players usually, there's not like any real history of like Navy, Army players coming in and being successful in the NFL. It is what it is, but he is an extremely interesting athletic prospect. Caleb Proctor is at the combine, and just looking here, he went and ran a 4.7 40 with a 1.68 split. He jumped 33 inches high and 9'5" broad. Look, he had some very good numbers. Okay, he was second in the 40 amongst defensive tackles, and had the third fastest split, or tied for the second fastest split, behind Zane Durant. And Zane Durant is significantly smaller than Caleb Proctor. I believe Zane Durant weighed in at 290. Oh, okay. No, not that much smaller. My apologies. 291 for Caleb Proctor. So both these guys, a little bit undersized. It's funny because you get guys like this, you almost wonder if they beef up for the combine and they're actually a little faster. Zane Durant was super fast though, 4.75 with a 1.66 split for a guy of his size. He's got shorter arms, just under 32, but big old mitts, 10 and 5/8 inch hands, which again, we like that here on this channel. All right. So Durant is a guy that I could see them being interested in if they're interested in Caleb Proctor type or Landon Robinson type. Point being is they are clearly interested in building out the depth of that defensive line with the number of meetings they're taking. Again, it's really hard to nail down like individual prospects, but what you can look at is themes. Okay. And the theme also of that is those are day 3 guys mostly. Okay, so they're clearly not looking in the first couple rounds to go attack the interior defensive line, which may signify that they're not actually interested in trading Christian Barmore. And look, again, we're going to know more in the coming days. More and more will come out about the prospect meetings at the combine. I think there were 14 listed on this particular list that I'm looking at. And this is from patspulpit.com, FYI. They've got a pretty extensive list of meetings. As the news comes out, they'll be added to this, and we'll be able to read more off the trends of who they're talking to. But moving on to the next position, and this is the first one that really starts telling us what they're thinking about doing with their high value assets: defensive edge. All right. They have met with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 defensive edge prospects thus far. 4 at the combine. Now, the 4 at the combine: Keyron Crawford, Auburn, a little bit of a later value pick. Cassius Howell, Texas A&M, super short arms. We covered that on Friday, but still probably a day 2 pick. Right? Round 2, round 3. If he could sneak into the back end of round 1 still. I mean, obviously, we don't care that much about measurables. We have Will Campbell playing left tackle. He was drafted 4th last year, historical outlier in terms of wingspan, right? Beyond just the short arms, he also had very narrow shoulders. It made him a historical outlier in terms of wingspan. Cassius Howell is a historical outlier in terms of arm length, if it weren't for Ruben Bain anyway. Akeem Mesidor met with at the combine. Now, I was incorrect on his size, which again, I spoke about on Friday. I thought he was going to be the 275 to 280 range. He actually came in at 259. Now, yeah, you trim down a little bit typically to work out at the combine, but Mesidor did not work out at the combine. So I'm not, why would he be trimming down to work out at the combine? Um, but yeah, so it's maybe he's trimming down to work at the pro day. Maybe 259 to 265 is actually his, preferred playing weight range, rather. I'm not entirely sure, but point being is that he did not come in at the 275 to 280 that I expected him. They did meet with him at the combine. He's 25 years old. So if you draft him in the first round, he's going to be 30 years old at the end of his rookie contract. A lot of these, I mean, a lot of times you want people to be well through their rookie contract by the time they're 25, let alone signing their rookie contract by the time they're 25. So it's really hard to make that sort of investment with a first round pick, a guy that you're probably only going to get 5 good years out of. I mean, we touched briefly on an earlier episode about the fall off rate of edge rushers after the age of 30, and it's very quick. All right. So his second contract, I mean, maybe a year or two, you got to play it year by year. You can't give him big guaranteed money for sure. It's just you get limited value out of a guy that's 25 years old at the time of the draft. It is what it is. So it's tough to see them spending a first round draft pick on him. But again, day 2 pick for sure. So day 2 pick for him, day 2 pick for Howell, both totally reasonable, both also potentially in round 1 consideration, depending on who you talk to. They have their fans, and they may very well have their fans within that building also. We've got to remember Mesidor, Miami Hurricane. Okay. That's where he played his college ball. The Patriots have a lot of ex Miami Hurricanes in the building throughout their scouting department, throughout their coaching staff, and throughout the roster. They have a couple also. So he probably definitely has fans in that building, the same way that he has fans in every group chat that I'm in with, draft analysts around the country. TJ Parker, another guy, they met with him at the Senior Bowl. Okay, he is a definite first round prospect. Now, I have my questions about him, but if they talked with him and they feel comfortable about where he's at, in terms of love for the game and motivation and work ethic and all those sorts of things, then why not line him up? Why not draft him in the first round if he's there at 31? If he's there, I don't even think he will be. But again, I've also talked before about how we might need to trade up in this draft. We've got 11 picks. We may not have 11 roster spots. So why not package a couple together, move up and grab the guy you really love? And is that guy they really love Zion Young? I don't know, but Zion Young, another guy, end of the first round, early second round consideration. What does all this tell me? Well, we've gone through all these other position groups and we haven't talked about any first day guys, not one until edge. And now we've talked about 4, maybe 5. Denied Dennis Sutton, a guy who had first round hype preseason. And given his offseason thus far, he could work his way back into the end of the first round. That wouldn't be ridiculous. Okay, because he's a solid second round projection right now. And I've said probably a dozen times about this draft class, when you get to about the 20th ranked prospect, maybe even like the 18th, but say the 20th, let's even say the 25th. Okay. The 25th ranked prospect to about, I don't know, the 55th, 60th ranked prospect. There's just not a lot of separation between those guys, and there's a lot of disagreement. Okay. So it's really becomes a bucket, and it's a rather shallow bucket. You can grab your guy out of there anyway. It doesn't really matter. So the difference between drafting, say, DDS at 31 and then, I don't know, trading up from 63 to get him at 51, 20 picks later, not that big a difference in terms of value in this class. Again, this class, not highly regarded. Okay. So you're going to want to get the guy you want, the guy you think fits in your team specifically. All right. Point being, DDS, Cassius Howell, Mesidor, Parker, Young, all edge players, all, let's say, first and second round considerations. That tells me they're looking to spend a high value asset in the draft on the edge position. Linebacker, they have met with only 2 linebackers thus far. I know they've talked about linebacker as an upgrade position. If you're not meeting with them in the draft process, are you looking at free agency? I don't know. I did see somebody propose that Devin Lloyd uh, could be a Patriots target, and as much as I really like Devin Lloyd's skill set, and I do, former first round pick, I liked him in the draft process when he went. I believe it was 21, 22. Off the top of my head, I honestly couldn't tell you, but I remember liking him in the draft process. I believe he came out of Utah. Um, but Mike Vrabel's history doesn't say to me that he thinks he needs to use high value assets on ultra talented linebackers in order to be successful. I mean, look at his affinity for guys like Robert Spillane and Jack Gibbons, right? Both not guys who are going to make your eyes pop out of your head at the combine, but hard workers, hard work ethic, lunch pail, hard hat guys that go to work and do their job. And there's not a lot of fanfare around these guys. So I don't know if Devin Lloyd is necessarily the thing, but if you want to upgrade linebacker and you want to do it through the draft, particularly if you're trying to find a guy who is, smart enough, football intelligence, people intelligence, etc., to be a leader on that defense, to be the green dot guy if Robert Spillane goes down. Yeah, let's say Jack Gibbons is walking out the door. Who's going to be that guy if Robert Spillane goes down? Right? So you're going to want to meet with these guys. So we'll see what their intentions are as the news comes out about who, in fact, in total they met with at the combine. They get 45 visits. We have the news on about a third of those. So cornerback is the next spot. And again, this is a collection of late, day 3 guys. Nobody that I'm super impressed with. It's 4 guys from the American Bowl, 1 guy from the Hula Bowl, 1 guy from College Gridiron Showcase, 1 guy from the Shrine Bowl, Andre Fuller of Toledo, and then another guy from Toledo at the combine, Avery Smith. Now, I would expect, let's keep an eye on Toledo's pro day. Obviously, they like those defensive backs there. And they've also got Emmanuel McNeil Warren. There's been talk from me, too, about the need for a third safety, for depth, for succession plan. In a couple of years when Hawkins is probably moving on or retiring or whatever he would do at the age of 31, 32 as a safety. So there's been talk of that. Obviously, they're thinking about that too. Kamari Ramsey, another guy they met with at the combine. Now, they've met with 5 safeties. The other guys are day 3 considerations. But Kamari Ramsey is a round 2 projection in this draft. Teams are well aware of players' expected projections, definitely even more so than a guy like me is. But Kamari Ramsey, higher projection. So they like him. I'd be interested to see who else they meet with at the combine. If there are a couple other safeties, this is a very deep safety class. And safety, again, is another one of those positions where you've got to know the guy's head to see if he can help run your defense, right? Actually was listening to an interview from, I think it's their director of college scouting, the Patriots, the other day, and they asked him, like, can you name a guy that you really like, something happened at the combine last year and you thought, yeah, we got to draft that guy, and then you did? And he said, absolutely, Craig Woodson. So Craig Woodson, I just really liked who he was as a person, as a leader, et cetera, et cetera. And he just went into this whole showering praise on Craig Woodson, which is great, super. But point being is that, number one, it was a safety. So I don't know if there's any relation there. Maybe he likes the safety drills. Maybe he was a, ex-secondary player himself. Maybe it just happened to be Craig Woodson. I don't know. But he also talked about Craig Woodson playing on the West Coast, and Kamari Ramsey plays at USC. And he talked about how he was a West Coast guy for years and years and, got early eyes on these guys and that sort of thing. So look, there are trends that are important to watch. Okay. And you want to take the big picture and narrow down as much as you need to, but not too much. All right. You start focusing in on individual names and you start missing, the bigger picture around them. So, point being is that look, clearly they're looking for a third option cornerback. Clearly they like the guys out at Toledo. Clearly they think safety is a need if they can meet it. If it, they talked about, where BPA, best player available, intersects with need. That's where you want to make your pick. So if a guy like Kamari Ramsey is on the board when they pick at 63 or even 94, which I've seen him on the board still late in the third round in a lot of mock drafts, he has a fairly wide range because it's such a deep safety class. It's really becomes about what flavor do you like, right? And maybe Kamari Ramsey isn't for everybody. And maybe the guys he's for, it's like 7 teams that he fits ideally on, and 6 of them just don't have safety ranked highly in the draft. And hey, you end up grabbing it, being able to grab him at the end of the third round. That'd be great. Where does need meet BPA? Right? Maybe it meets when Kamari Ramsey is on the board. And again, maybe the news comes out that we see them meeting with several safeties that are projected in that range. And we find out safety is a higher priority than we thought coming in. Keep an eye on the Toledo Pro Day. They like those cornerbacks. They've got a good safety themselves there. Edge, first round. That's probably what's going to happen. That looks like it's going to be what's going to happen. I don't know, by the way, the offensive line meetings. Okay. One combine visit. The offensive line. That's Jalen Farmer. I feel like we're going to have more coming out of there. I feel like it's hard. It would be really hard to justify not meeting with somebody like, say, Monroe Freeling, who has been projected anywhere from 6th to 46th in the past week alone, who's going out there, putting on a show athletically, got the ideal measurements. This is a guy that you should be interested in. You should at least probably meet with. We've talked about Blake Miller on this show. He's at the combine. See if they meet with him. Caleb Lomu, Caleb Tiernan, guys like this. Are you looking for a developmental backup offensive tackle? Because if you are, this is a solid draft to find one of those guys in, I think. Are you looking for a young guard to play, either compete, to start now, or to develop? I think they are. They've met with 9 of them. So, look, we're going to continue looking at these trends, watching these trends, and talking about the combine as things happen. All right. That's a number of players that we've mentioned here that might have interest to the Patriots that fit what we're looking for. And we're going to go a little deeper into that. Now, to wrap this episode up real quick, I would like to talk about our plans for the week because I've got a full slate. Okay. I've done a lot of talking with various draft analysts, scouts, media, podcasting types, etc. And I've got a pretty solid lineup for us this week, I think. All right. So there are a couple minor schedule tweaks and one major schedule tweak. Actually, there's one minor and one major. So Monday morning, Anthony Russo, he was on with us a few weeks ago, a week or two ago. A fellow Draft Professors podcaster, also a Jets fan. So we try not to hold that against him. But he's going to join us live at 9 a.m. We're going to talk about combine, kind of an overall combine review. By then, these offensive linemen should all be finished running the 40, I would hope. And we'll have a kind of a full data set to talk about from the combine. There were a number of guys who skipped workouts, by the way. So that leaves us with a little bit less data than we would like on these guys. And B, you're going to hear a lot about how, this is the fastest group ever and so forth. That's because all the slow guys didn't work out. They knew they were slow and they didn't work out. They're going to work out at their pro day where hopefully they can get a friendlier time, or maybe at a private workout where definitely they can get a friendlier time. So, that's again, everything you hear from NFL types at this time of year, huge grain of salt, okay? Especially a few sources, but we'll get into those things as they become more relevant. Continuing on, Tuesday night, major schedule change, major live at 8 p.m. at night. Matt Chabot is going to come back. He was on a couple weeks ago. He's a really great guest. We talked about a secondary preview of the combine. Maybe that was a week ago. But it will have been 2 weeks ago by the time he gets back. So Tuesday night, 8 p.m., Matt Chabot is going to come on. We're going to talk also about combine prospects, maybe specifically about the secondary prospects. And he wrote a really solid article over on, I think it's Arrowhead Addict, where he was talking about some of the edge prospects that he likes for his Chiefs. And there was some crossover yeah, it's Arrowhead Addict. That's where he writes at. So, there was some crossover in terms of guys that we're also interested in. So I thought we'd talk to him about those guys also. Now Wednesday morning, Tej, that's a YouTube channel, capital T E, lowercase capital J. He's going to join me. We're going to be live at 9 a.m. Right now, I'm thinking maybe he and I do a full first round mock draft. Tej and I go back to the 2023 draft cycle where we got together. I was living out in Vegas at the time. My podcast was on Spotify. Tej had his own podcast on YouTube, and he was good enough to come and join me. We did a full first round mock. We at that year, that draft class is funny. Both of us really had Brian Branch high on our boards. Okay, like top 10 on our boards. He ended up going in deep in the second round. We were both puzzled by it, and we just kind of both joke about it at times. So anyway, Tej is going to come on Wednesday. We're going to do I think we're going to do a full first round mock draft. And, because look, it's not always going to be just about the Patriots on here. And even if you're a Patriots fan and you want to know Patriots stuff, it's not like knowing what else is going on is going to help, right? You got to know who else everybody is thinking about taking in order to know who's going to be there for you at 31. So we're going to do that on Wednesday morning with Tej. Thursday, we'll be live at 10 a.m. with Clint Goss. He's going to join. We're going to just kind of talk about some general NFL draft storylines, combine, prospect storylines. Look, between now and Thursday is a lifetime in NFL offseason time. We'll have a number of news stories to talk about by then. Perhaps player movements, perhaps developments with NFL draft prospects. But yeah, we're going to go down and we're going to talk some generalized sort of NFL story type of stuff, NFL draft type of stuff with Clint Goss on Thursday. That's again live at 10 a.m. So Wednesday, Thursday, kind of a broader focus. It'll still be some stuff as it impacts the Patriots, but kind of a broader focus throughout the entire NFL. Friday morning, I'm going to pre-record an episode with Newt Weston of Cheesehead TV. As it sounds, he is a Green Bay guy. He is also an excellent defensive line analyst, draft prospect analyst. I watched a number of his episodes, him and Clint Goss too, the guy on Thursday. I watched a number of both of their episodes. They're both really, really good at this. They both really know what they're talking about. They're going to make great guests. I'm excited to get them this week. So that's the totality of the upcoming week schedule. Anthony Russo, Monday, 9 a.m. live. Tuesday, live, 8 p.m. with Matt Chabot. Wednesday, live, 9 a.m. with Tej. Thursday, live, 10 a.m. with Clint Goss. Friday, it'll be a pre-recorded episode, but it's going to be great with Newt Weston at Cheesehead TV. So make sure to tune in all throughout this week. I hope that this episode gave you guys a little bit of insight into some of these players that are potentially important for Patriots fans to keep an eye on because we just might be cheering for them next year. This is Randy from Snap Judgments. Like, subscribe, tell your friends about us. Write in the comments why, what you think about the things I've been saying on here. And please let me know what you think about the logo here. All right. This is new. I really dig it. I'm excited about it. But that's the end of things today. I will be back tomorrow morning with Anthony Russo here at 9 a.m. I look forward to seeing you there. Have a great end of your weekend.